Hey, what's up, guys? Time for another episode of Systemic Caseism, where we assess the cultural problems and provide absolutely no solutions whatsoever. I am Jewish. We have a tendency to complain. I observe the world around me, and I notice things that a lot of other people miss, all right? I'm the type of person whose brain just won't shut up. It's like a gift and a curse. Lately, a lot of people have been comparing America to 1984. And I've heard people throwing it around, and I'll ask, like, what parts specifically? And I usually get a response like, well, Big Brother, or something along those lines. Now, when I ask, have you read the book? The answer is usually no, which tells me it's become just kind of a thing to say. All right? Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just most people don't read novels anymore. It is what it is. So whether you've read 1984 or not is irrelevant. Since you're already here, why don't you like this video and subscribe to my channel? Hell, maybe even leave a comment and tell me what a plockman I am for getting stuff wrong all the time. Okay? Don't know what a plockman is? Look it up on Urban Dictionary. It's my word. I invented it with my cousin Tony in 2007. It's a great word. I'd recommend using it in your day-to-day life. You could probably slip a plockman in without anybody noticing. I think more people should start using the word. Like, really, it's about that time in America. Shit. The kids are saying skibbity toilet and mewing on a daily basis. Why not, plockman? You got to ask yourself that. And now I derailed my own conversation to give you, my audience, a plockman. It's a new word to share with the world. All right, enjoy that. Nice plockman. Anyway, sound like the president, the old one, not Trump. 1984 is a book by George Orwell about a dystopian reality nightmare world of government tyranny following a communist revolution. I've read 1984 like 3 times. Like, I read it once first when I was in high school. Didn't faze me. Other time was in the early 2000s, and then I read it during COVID. And when I read it in high school, there was like no way that a society could be this brainwashed to allow the government to lie to them like all the time. Right? And I believed that even though I was in a cult for high school. Get to that in another episode. When I read it in the early 2000s, it seemed as if it could be a possibility, but maybe in another country. Probably in another country, you know? Like a Russia, I don't know, somewhere in the Middle East. But not in America. Americans would never put up with this shit. No way. When I read it after COVID, it was in 2021. I thought, holy shit, George Orwell's a prophet. So this one's for all you anti-novelites out there. Here are 5 comparisons that you can make so other people will think that you've read the book 1984. Let's get into it. Okay, telescreens. The telescreens in 1984 are the devices that are always listening. They're always listening to you all the time. Okay, the telescreens are your television, and it's also a communication device. It contains a camera. Is that ringing any bells? The telescreen monitors, like, even the tiniest movements that you make, okay? Facial expressions, which can convey thoughts. It's a two-way electronic device that functions both as a television and a surveillance tool that constantly broadcasts propaganda. Does that sound familiar to anybody? Simultaneously monitors every move, sound, and facial expression. I'm sure you've used YouTube or Facebook or been on the internet if you have a phone. And I'm sure you've noticed that the ads are pretty much exactly what you've been talking about. Have a conversation with somebody. My ads are typically things about defecation. All right, I talk a lot of shit, and I talk about a lot of shit, and I talk shit. A lot. And so my YouTube ads usually will be talking about humongous dumps or having a problem taking a dump. I find if I go into other offices or workplaces, I get a lot of sports. I'm not into sports, but it knows that other people in my proximity are into sports, and it will display those ads. So they're not perfect, but the phone, that's the most comparable thing to telescreens, and they're absolutely everywhere in 1984. I dare you to go out and find somebody that does not have a smartphone in 2025. We all have them. We all willingly subjugated ourselves to this form of surveillance and tyranny, and we all have to pay for it too, unless you got that Obama phone, in which case, you know, Somebody else is paying for it for you, but they're still tracking you the same way. Don't think you get a pass. Number 2 is Newspeak. Newspeak is the official language of Oceania, created by the ruling party to replace Old Speak. Control words, control minds. Control minds, control behaviors. Reducing the language to its most simplistic form. So instead of like good, great, awesome, bad, you wouldn't have good and bad anymore, right? You'd have good, which is your root word, plus good would be like better. Double plus good would be like great or best. And you wouldn't have a word for bad. All right? They would focus on the positive. So it would just be ungood. The limiting language theory that goes on in 1984 is really kind of terrifying if you think about it. Right? Our vocabulary as a society, if you listen to people in like the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, even like 70s, if you listen to them speak, they are far more articulate than we are today. A much wider range of vocabulary. They were also far better off. How are the kids speaking today? Pay attention to it. Right? Skibbity toilet. I'm mewing. Riz. No cap. Full stop. Sis. Bruh. Words are sort of degrading. Everything is degrading. And when those words degrade, like if you don't have concepts or you don't have words for, if you don't have words to describe things, it's going to be harder to conceptualize those things. Okay, and we'll leave it at that. As you limit the vocabulary, you limit the ability for free thought. And a population that's dumb is easy to control. And that's what they were after in 1984, was the intentional dumbing down of the population to be able to control them. All right, so this stuff kind of exists today. I mean, you can call me a conspiracy theorist, that's fine. But that's a pretty stunning parallel. And that one's more important than you'd think. All right, I was in a cult of a boarding school, and they controlled the language there. There were certain things you were not allowed to say. And you weren't even supposed to think them. They were very, very adamant about things that you weren't supposed to say. But they would also have you tell on yourself for things that you thought that did not align with the doctrine or the ideology of the school. And when I first got there, I knew something was wrong within 5 minutes of being there. Everybody was acting all weird. They were speaking different. This is what it is. They had their own form of newspeak. Control words, control thoughts, control actions, control people. Number 3 is Thoughtcrime. Thoughtcrime is the act of thinking anything against Big Brother, the party, or its ideology. Important note there, it's ideology. You don't have to speak it or act on it. Just the idea, a flicker of rebellion, a spark of doubt, is enough to make you a criminal. Thoughtcrime is reported to the thought police. Modern day example for this is in Great Britain, and I know this is going to be controversial. I don't want to get into the politics of it. I want to get into the actual facts of what went on. There was a woman in Great Britain that was praying silently in front of an abortion clinic. Whether you are for or against abortion is irrelevant here. You got to focus on the actions. The thought for silently praying, the punishment was to get arrested. That's thought crime. That's a modern day example of thought crime. And in a lot of cases in our culture lately, I've noticed that people will not speak out against things that are absolutely crazy. And, you know, those things can be on a variety of topics. It's usually race, gender, sexuality, all of that. And a whole bunch of new morals, let's call them, because it is very much a moral framework, have been sort of injected by force into our culture that we're supposed to just accept and swallow. You don't want to be the bigot speaking out against the fact that there's a naked dude at a pride parade in front of children. No, you don't want to be that. So people will keep their mouths shut, and it's a form of tyranny. And again, what they'll do is they'll twist that around and they'll turn that into a crime. I don't have any problem with gay people. I have a problem with adults being naked in front of children in public. Straight, gay, doesn't matter. But with thought crime and controlling what people are thinking, again, you're going to be able to control the population. Constant wars. Okay, this is an excerpt from the book. And in this certain passage in the book, Winston, who's our protagonist, is talking with Julia, who is his love interest, about the wars that have been going on. They live in a country called Oceania. And Oceania was at constant war. So she had not even noticed that the name of the enemy had changed. I thought we'd always been at war with Eurasia. And their thing in 1984 was, we've always been at war with East Asia or Eurasia. And they could change it. They could flip it around just like that. And what's funny is that they blame the Jews for it when it was flipped around and they already had posters up. So there's kind of another parallel with modern day society. It's very easy to blame the Jews. And a lot of times you can blame the Jews for certain things when they do things wrong. I'm not saying they're above reproach. I'm just saying there are people out there that everything comes back to, it's always got to be the Jews at all times. And I think if you have that mindset, you're not going to find out when it isn't or when it really is, and nobody's going to take you seriously. So let's think about the Iraq War, shall we? Both sides of it. And let's ask ourselves, why did we go over there? Both wars. The first one, we were sold something about Kuwait, right? They were doing something with the oil in Kuwait. We had to go over there and do Operation Desert Storm. That was with the first Bush, the CIA Bush. The second war was after, allegedly, Osama bin Laden had ordered the planes to fly into the Twin Towers and the Pentagon. Somehow, during that frenzy, there was an investigation in the Middle East by a completely neutral party, let's call it, that found weapons of mass destruction. Now, were there any weapons? No. Did we go to war and all the politicians support it? Yes. And I was a kid at the time. Well, I was a young adult. I think I was like 19 or 20. And even to me, at that point, I thought, well, maybe the smart people know something. Maybe these people know something that I don't. But didn't they just tell us that Afghanistan attacked us, not Iraq? And people would say, well, they're both Muslims, and they're both dictators, or they're both Islamic fanatics. Of course, they all know each other. Osama and Saddam hang out all the time together. Looking back on it, it sounds like complete bullshit to me. But what did that have to do with us? All right, what did Saddam Hussein have to do with us? We lost a lot of people in that war. They lost a lot of people in that war. Who benefited from it? Like, not us in the United States, I'm sure, not Iraq either. So why did we go to that war? Well, when you have a constant state of chaos like that and war, you can do a lot of things to your population, right? You can drum up the economy. War is always good for the economy. You can divert attention away from something else. There's a war going on. Nobody wants to question people during a time of war. So what did we get from the wars with Iraq? We got the TSA. And let me tell you, for all you kids that are like, and I say kids, I mean like people in your 20s, people in your 30s, there was a time before there was the TSA where flying, believe it or not, used to actually be fun. You used to be able to wait in the terminal for people to come back. There were still security checks, like you'd walk through the metal detector, and I believe you'd even put your bag on the little tray thing. But it wasn't the big mess of take off your shoes, take off your belt, take off your everything. Let's give you x-rays. Let's do facial recognition. I mean, just think about that. Think about how much the TSA has evolved since they've put it in, right? It starts with, we need this for your safety. We're doing this for your own good. We don't want anybody flying any more planes in any buildings, do we? So just give us a little bit of your freedom for some safety. Now, has the TSA ever done anything well? I doubt it. And you could say, well, there haven't been any more terrorist attacks since we put the TSA in. Okay, but that doesn't mean because we put the TSA in, there's been no more terrorist attacks. What about other countries that don't have the TSA? Like, our airports are extremely strict. And that was imposed on us through this war. The war created a state of chaos, which made us feel unsafe, which let us give up some of our freedoms to our government, our benevolent overlord, Big Brother, to make us feel safer. And now, when I go to the airport, I dread it. I hate going to the airport. I get fucked with all the time by TSA. Constant pat downs, constant crotch grabbing. You know, it's not a lot of fun. So the constant wars are another parallel that we could draw to 1984. We got two going on right now. I mean, we're not in them directly, but I believe we're funding them. And for whatever it's worth, there are wars going on in Ukraine and Russia and Israel and Palestine. But you have people over here that are very much affected by it. It's very much affected people's lives over here. Our local population, the protesting, the people being killed, the I hate you if you don't support blah, the government being able to siphon out our money and give it to these foreign countries, and you not being able to object because, you know, you need to fund freedom. They're our ally. They're our buddies. Just, we got to give them money. Don't you want the good guys to win? I don't think it's a matter of good guys and bad guys all the time. And I don't think America needs to fund all these wars all the time. I'd prefer peace. Like, I'm not a pacifist. I understand that wars happen. But if you can have peace, isn't that better? Or is a constant state of war better? Like, war seems to benefit governments and really rich people the most. It doesn't benefit us. It does not benefit you whatsoever to have a war on foreign soil that has nothing to do with us because our government wants to enrich themselves. And brings us to number 5, which I think is the most important to cover. Number 5 is hatred. And I've been seeing a lot of hatred in this country that I wish I wasn't seeing. Just hatred for one another. Ever since Trump came down the escalator, there has been a lot of hatred for Donald Trump and for all the people that voted for Donald Trump. And you have hatred between the Israel and Palestine people. You have hatred between the, I don't know that there's a lot of like pro-Russia people, but there's certainly like anti-Ukraine war people. And you have a lot of hatred between them and the people that want the Ukraine war. Trump derangement syndrome is a phenomenon, like it or not. And that anger we've seen, it really doesn't have, it would seem like it has a lot to do with Donald Trump, but you can see how it quickly morphed over to Elon Musk. It was a level of outrage that I've never seen in my entire life growing up here on such a large scale. You know, like the fact that you could go up and key somebody's Tesla or firebomb a dealership because Elon and Donald Trump are working together seems crazy to me. I don't know how you can justify that. I can understand how you could not like Donald Trump or Elon Musk. I don't know what makes you burn down a Tesla dealership or vandalize somebody's property. As if you're some moral better doing that. And I think it's crazy. I think we got to pump the brakes on all of the hatred. Like, frankly, I can't wait until we're in a post-Trump world. But that hatred's got to be ameliorated. It's got to go somewhere. And it seems like it can shift, but it's got to be dealt with. And I don't know I don't know how to deal with that. I wish I had some brilliant answers. But hatred was a real big part of 1984. They had this little thing called, it was like 2 minutes hate, where I'll get to this. Hatred, in its second minute, the hate rose to a frenzy. People were leaping up and down in their places, shouting at the top of their voices. Like, take a look at any protest that turns into a riot. So much hatred in the name of empathy and compassion. People are completely blinded to their ideological adherence and to the idea that is not of their own due to indoctrination. There are a lot of indoctrinated people in this country because our media has made them that way. These are not bad people, and that's the thing that everybody needs to understand, is that when I talk about ideologues, I don't think that they're bad people. I think that they are brainwashed people. And having been a brainwashed person myself, I know how hard that is to shake. But there's a large-scale cult that's going on, and I'm not saying it's everybody on the left, I'm not saying it's everybody on the right, but there are people on the left wing that have to get on board with the latest whatever it is all the time, or else you're out of the friend group. And you can't question it. All right? That seems to exist on the left. You cannot question anything. On the right, though, you have people that are, how should I put it? Trump is their savior. Donald Trump can do no wrong. And having those two coexist at the same time is a big problem, because you've got to be able to criticize people in power. And if you have a guy that is infallible and a group of people that will go along with whatever he says, well, that's scary, especially if you're ideologically possessed on the left, because what they're telling them is that all of you are this way. And what they're telling you is that all of them are this way. And how do you reconcile that? You know, we need to get out of this reality show that we're blindly stumbling into, because it's bad. And I think the way that we need to do that is through comedy. I know there's been a couple serious videos that I've made recently, but I'm just making observations. Like, we need to be able to agree on a couple things. Can we just to move forward as a country, can we just all agree women don't have penises? Look, I get there's trans people. I get they're going through their own thing. Women don't have penises, and we all know what a woman is. We all know what a woman is. All of these people that won't define it, the reason they won't define it is because they know what it is. And they know what it is because they're ideologically possessed, and if they go against whatever the mob says, which is, if you don't say women have penises, we won't be friends with you anymore, or you'll lose your job. That shit's got to stop. Like, it was not this way growing up. I grew up in the 90s and early 2000s, and, you know, I was born in the 80s. So I guess you could say I was like an 80s, 90s kid. And shit wasn't like this. Like, we did not have the race and gender problems that we have today. We did not have the sexuality problems that we have today. We didn't have the extreme hatred for one another that we have today. All right? I think that if there's one thing that everybody can agree on, or that I hope everybody can agree on, it's that government is not the solution to your problems. Government is the problem. Now, you can't have a place or a country that doesn't have a government. That's like impossible. Then you get anarchy, and I think everybody goes nuts. And that's it. But you can't maintain a landscape that's so damn hostile towards anybody that just has questions, that persists for this long. It's tiring, it's exhausting, and whether you participate in it or not, like, you're still affected by it. Whatever crazy new thing just comes out. Like, let's say tomorrow, right? Here's some comedy. Let's say tomorrow they make a new thing, and that new thing is a person that just has a scrotum. Okay? Just has a scrotum and a hole. And we call that a moment. And you have to support Moment, and Moment's rights. I support, actually, Scroman. Scroman would be better. We're calling these Scro people Scromans. And we just have to accept, like, they've always been Scromans. And that there's now this new thing that we convince you has always existed. And you need to say has always existed, but really hasn't. Okay, there's been transvestites for as long as I've been alive. But there's never been, to my knowledge, people that have been pushing children to become transvestites. That's the shit that's got to be dialed back. Got to be dialed back. I don't see any other way than dialing that shit back. And I know there's not that many people, and I know these people struggle. All right, I get it. As coming from somebody that's like dealt with being depressed my whole life, I get it. I get being mentally ill. But I also get that, like, people shouldn't have affirmed my depression and said, yeah, you know what? You are right. Do it. Go to the Skyway. Go to the Skyway and see if you can fly. So I don't know what we're going to do about this, but I would suggest that we all stop taking shit so seriously, that we are aware of all of this stuff, and then we start questioning it. When you're self-censoring yourself, that sounds like a dumbass sentence. When you're self-censoring, the things that you don't say are really important, because every time that you don't speak up, that's how we get penis women, right? Every time that you allow some new gender to be created and don't go, yo, look, man, kids can't wear tails in school. He's pissing in the corner. Knock it off. Every time that's not addressed or ridiculed. This is why some people say to bring back bullying. Okay? At least a little bit. I mean, you shouldn't let the kids with the tails be the bullies, which they've become. Because now the punishment for speaking out against the crazy is so severe that people just shut up. And most people don't want to be bothered with this nonsense. If you're not an ideologue or an activist, you go about living your daily life, you treat everybody the way that they treat you, get up, you go to work, you go to the store, you're not looking for all, you don't need to be caught up with the most current thing. But you have a bunch of crazy people that occupy positions of power that are going around demanding that you believe all this shit that they believe. Or at least if you don't believe it, to keep your mouth shut and not speak up about it. They'd really like you to worship it. And they go on and on and on about religious people, typically Christians, about, oh, there's moral purists. Dude, you guys are the moral purists. And to all the extreme MAGA people that are brainwashed into thinking that Trump is like the second coming, he's not. He's not the second coming. He's just a man. He's just a man. You've got to be able to question it. I'm not saying that he hasn't done some awesome things. He has. But hasn't he done some bad things too? Is it possible for him to make a mistake? You've got to leave that possibility open. Don't blindly follow anything, especially when there's power attached to it. So there's your 5 things from 1984. I hope you now have the ammunition that you need to tell people, yeah, I know about 1984. I haven't read the book, but I know some things. All right, guys, that'll about cover it. Peace.